Okay, to start, we will have Building Bridges, the presidential candidate, give the opening statement, followed by Ignite, and then Evolve.
When reflecting on the role of St. Louis University, we usually ask students, do you love SLU? If I'm fortunate enough to be elected for next fall, the Building Bridges administration will begin to ask the more important question, does St. Louis University love you? I have entered this race because I believe SLU is not where they should be in loving their students. I have been fortunate with caring professors, empathetic advisors, and a limitless amount of opportunity. I am not, however, running for president to represent myself. I am running for the student that feels unsafe on campus because of their race. I am running for the gay student who hears their identity be abused nearly every time they walk down West Pine Boulevard. A loving SLU is not limited to identity issues, though. That is why I am running for the student who has to reintroduce herself every time she visits her advisor, or the student who wants to get involved on campus but feels he has no outlet, or the student who still wonders when they will see the Jesuit mission put into practice. I recognize that one person cannot change many of these issues, but recognizing that does not mean I will settle for a student government that sits idly by hoping the issues take care of themselves. Recognizing we have work to do does not mean we seek to push the job onto someone else's plate. We must understand that bettering SGA will better this campus. Understand that the Student Government Association is your association. Understand that next year your concerns will be just as valued as my concerns. Some have said that I should have waited until next year to run for president. I know these issues cannot wait until next year. I believe we need an executive board right now that has empathy with students' issues, has pragmatism when approaching the administration, and has a constant determination to improve this campus. With your help, we can get to work. We can build bridges.
We could hold the applause to the end of each section. It'll make tonight go a little bit smoother. Thanks.
Our ticket name is Ignite, Empowering SLU, because we have two things that I believe set our ticket apart, and that's experience and cohesion, from the top to the bottom of the platform. Starting off with experience, I believe each and every one of my vice presidential candidates has strong experience within and outside of SGA. But to talk about my experience in SGA, I served as a senator and also as a vice president of financial affairs. And the skills that I've learned through financial vice president and my time as senator are the need for organization, communication, and professionalism within SGA. And this will create an SGA that really stands out to students and is able to form a personal relationship with all students. And going on to our platform, I believe our platform stands from top to bottom a strong cohesion between each of our points. Not only my point that I listed in the presidential platform, but also the points for each of the vice presidents. Really, if you look at how much they connect and how much they are intertwined, it really brings out the fact that we can and will accomplish our goals to serve students and to be open and available for students. Our platform includes things like the library and really reaching out and continuing the momentum on the library that was started this year. It also includes SGA outreach in all forms, not only through reaching out to students in new ways like advertisements, stronger advertisement presence just of SGA so that more students know us, but also more cookouts and more senator involvement in all aspects of their constituency. And then finally, we just want students to really know us and trust us and to build those personal relationships because we want to empower students. We want to ignite St. Louis University. Thank you.
Sorry. I think that we've been very complacent in the last couple of years at SLU. I think that we've seen very obvious problems arise all over campus. We need to be challenging the status quo of past years. In the spirit of this ticket's name, Evolve, we intend to build upon the previous accomplishments of SGA. as well as to further develop and expand in other areas that require attention. Some of these areas include sustainability. At SLU, I think, as a Jesuit Catholic university, I think we really need to focus on sustainability. We should be focused on creating men and women for others who are focused on working with others, which is what sustainability actually is. It's focused on creating sustainable relationships with the community, as well as the simple environmentalism. In addition, I think we need to focus on making sure the Bauman Eberhard Center and the library renovations continue on the path we are right now, and making them focused on students. Student conduct is another platform point of mine. I think that we need to work with student conduct to ensure that all student conduct outcomes are positive for students. Two more, likely band better fields, village fields. I think these need to be changed to turf immediately. As SLU students, we see that these are a health as risk because students cannot use these as much as they would like. So I'd like to do that. And then event planning, which currently does not work for students because students are focused on bringing speakers who they try to get through, not necessarily ones they want to bring. But Valve really wants to do something new for SLU, a complete change. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Courtney Anbender. I'm the current Student Government Association president. I will be asking two questions, and then the first question, they will follow the order of Ignite, Building Bridges, and then Evolve. Okay, the first question is, what do you perceive to be the primary obstacles for your initiatives, and what will you do to overcome them? And if you need me to repeat them before you answer yours, just let me know, okay?
Primary initiatives, major obstacles, and then how we'll overcome them.
Oh, the battery's dead. It's working. Okay. What do you perceive to be the primary obstacles for your initiatives, and what will you do to overcome them?
I think the primary obstacle for our initiatives as a whole is just getting students involved, and I think each person up here beside me can agree that truly reaching out and getting more excitement for anything that SGA does is going to be the greatest strength, and overcoming that, we believe, will be possible through our many efforts and commitment to outreach. And not just outreach, but also getting feedback and acquiring that and organizing that in a way so that whatever the issue is, whether it's the library, whether it's promoting diversity on campus, bringing diversity to Unity, and promoting any initiative of SGA, I believe that outreach and getting students' voices heard is the way that we'll overcome that, because when you have student momentum, you can really accomplish anything.
I echo that student involvement is very important, and I think in order to work with the administration, you have to know students' needs, and that doesn't mean the need that you immediately think is important, but when you reach out to all students and hear that. Specifically, I think there's two ways to approach this. I think there's the intangible of just being very approachable and valuing every student's word and understanding that their concerns are legitimate. But I think tangibly we also have to, I get the feeling that every year people say they're going to open up to students, and I think we need to have a set plan on how we're going to do that if we plan on it working. So I think tangibly, I think student government needs to go to students. I don't think they need to look around and be like, why aren't students coming to student government? And with that, we have proposed to ensure senators, or almost require senators to go to student government, CSO meetings, and informing them on what's occurring. A lot of the problems we run into are miscommunication issues, and until we speak with CSOs and keep them informed, we cannot have an honest appraisal of how we're doing our job. Thank you.
I think that some of the primary issues that will arise are focused on the administration as well. I think that when we work with the administration, sometimes things don't always go as planned. I think that working with the administration should be our number one goal. Working with them and not against. Also, along with this, sometimes students see what we're doing and they think it's a bad idea and we should stop doing this. I will listen to students. I think Vice Presidential candidate Deloria talked on this later, but talking about how students are primary, they're our constituents. We need to listen to what they're saying. And they're saying we shouldn't be doing a certain thing. we should listen to them and say, okay, this is fine, we're done with this then. This is not what our students want. This is not what SLU wants. But I think working in administration should be our number one goal, and when we have roadblocks, continuing to work with them and not against them. And that's it.
I will now ask the second question, and again, you'll have a minute and a half to respond to this. And the order we will go in is evolve, building bridges, and then ignite. The question is, what do you think is the most notable accomplishment of the current administration, as a student government administration, senators, and executive board? Additionally, in what areas do you think your administration can further the impact made by the current executive board and senators of student government?
I think that the primary accomplishment of this current executive board and senate is the library initiative. We've gotten a lot done on this past year. This is something that I had no idea would happen. I thought we would get some progress this year and we continue doing this for next year. But I think we've gotten enough progress this year that we'll be finishing up by next year. I think that it's not something that it's something that no one expected. It's going to be a really great project for next year, or for this year, and next year we'll be finishing. As well, I think we need to focus on finding out what students are passionate about and continuing that, like the library. The library was a huge problem for students. But for the next step for next year, I think we need to be focused on doing something completely new, what students actually want, though, definitely.
Great. I think the library is a very important issue, and I think a lot of students are happy with it, and I think it shows the testament to what SGA can do when they're taking student feedback and actually working with it. With that, though, I think the oath of inclusion is a bigger victory. We're yet to see how it plays out, but the idea that multiple people can come together and unite around one goal and then have the courage to make it public is a big victory. In terms of what we would do differently, I think we would concentrate on the role of the senator more and at an earlier stage. I think it is important for senators to understand that they're ambassadors on this campus and that they represent their students. And I don't think that can be stated in December. I think it needs to be stated in August. I don't want the senator position to be seen as something that you just put on your resume, but rather a challenge to improve this university.
All right. Well, I think that the greatest accomplishment of this year's administration is more of an intangible, and it kind of combines both the library and the advancements through diversity. And I think that is that the administration has garnered the respect, or the SGA administration has garnered the respect of St. Louis University's administration. And the way they've done that is really shown their professionalism, their organization skills, and also their commitment to any issues they bring up. And I think this is important. It's something that's going to have to be carried on to next year, is really proving to those administrators at St. Louis University that we as SGA can be taken seriously, and that we really do think about the students and that we are open to the students. And the one way I think this can be improved for next year is to truly gain the respect of the students. And if SGA is looked at by the students as something that's ineffective, I think it really can make that ineffective. But if we were looked at by the students as an organization that's there for them, that can really work to get their goals accomplished, I think that would make waves of difference. And that's what we really want to do through Ignite, is to empower the students to not only get involved in all processes of SGA, but also let them know that our foundations with the administration will lead to the furthering of the student initiatives. Thank you.
Okay, now we will have, each presidential candidate will have up to 3 minutes to introduce their vice presidential ticket mates. And we will start with Ignite and go to Evolve and then Building Bridges.
Okay. Well, I just have to say, I'm so fond of my ticket, and I can talk to them at great lengths, but 3 minutes is a very short time. So I'll start off with Grant Podolsky. I chose him for academic vice president because he really has been involved very strongly in the library efforts this year, and And also with his experience in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, he knows sort of the foundations of SLU like no one else does. Next for internal, I chose Kathleen Cadigan. She has a lot of experience in SGA, which I believe is very important for internal. If you're going to be running any internal activities of SGA, you better have been in it. And Kathleen has been not only on the administrative side of SGA as CIO, Chief Information Officer, and also she's been on the senatorial side, so she knows both sides. Next, my financial vice president, Joe Wooster. He may be a freshman, but don't let that fool you. He's a very strong, he knows his stuff when it comes to the financial position. There was one time this semester where I couldn't be at a meeting and a group really needed to come up for funding. Well, I gave Joe the opportunity to lead that meeting and he led it successfully. And that group was able to have their needs met. Next we have Jessica Rosicki. Even though she has not had experience in SGA specifically, she is the president of APCS this year, which is basically the governing body for the Parks College students. And in her role, she's sort of done, on a smaller level, what she would do next year as vice president for student organizations. And that's making sure that there is a strong relationship between SGA and strong communication with CSOs, not only with each other, but also between them and SGA. So I believe she's very well set up to the position that she's running for. Next we have Maya Johnson. She is running for Vice President of Diversity and Social Justice. And she was a senator last year in student government. And the things that I really like about her is that she's going to be very honest, and she's going to be very strong and committed to whatever she brings through. And her vision for diversity is using diversity to create unity on campus. We've made a lot of improvements on the administrative side and sort of changing protocols. But now we realize, and Maya realizes, that you got to get the students to change because that's where the greatest change can occur. And finally, Federico Garcia Lorca. He has a vision as international vice president to really communicate well with students, and I think he has an excitement that can only be expressed by meeting him. Thank you.
I also really love my ticket. I think they've done a great job so far this year. I've just been amazed to work with them. First is Sarah Alcantee. She's running for financial vice president. I think she's done a really great job this year trying to find flaws in the financial system. I mean, that's hard to say, but finding what we need to be doing better in the financial system. And I think that we have some really strong ideas about what we can do to better it and make things work for students, and student groups especially. Next is Unedited. She's running for Vice President of Student Organizations. I think she's a great candidate for this position, not only because of her SGA experience, but also because of her passion and her motivation, and her dedication helping these student groups throughout campus. She's worked very closely with student groups the past 2 years on SGA as part of the financial committee and also as part of the COMSO, the Committee for Student Organizations. I think she will do a lot to better relationships between SGA and student organizations at SLU. Next is Amanda Cordon. She's running for VP of International Affairs. I think she's very passionate, she's very creative, and she's awesome. She's very approachable when international students come up to her and ask her questions. I've seen that in the last couple of days, just her working with other students. And her two main points this year are to merge international students with domestic students and make a better relationship, and also to make the overall administrative process less of a nuisance. Next we have Brett Delaria. Brett believes that SGA holds an extremely important role in university life. The deep relationship of trust between representatives and constituents to work on their behalf is a true honor and responsibility to have bestowed them from one's peers. And he believes that the work of SGA must be one that's transparent, accountable, and has a public presence in order to continue to build a community rooted in service to each other and to a wider community. Brett believes that we can achieve this with his leadership ability and passion to evolve SLU into a stronger community. Next we have John Gallagher. He's running for VP of Diversity and Social Justice. As co-founder of SLU's new Intergroup Dialogue program, John's very passionate about establishing an open, inclusive, and safe environment for all students, faculty, and staff at SLU. John's experiences are not simply limited to a strong involvement with the Intergroup Dialogue program, but also he has been president of Students United for Africa the past 2 years. He's a gregarious individual who thrives off of new experiences and meeting new people. Lastly, we have Lauren Chalmers. She's running for academic vice president because she's driven, dedicated, and committed. She's a natural-born leader and loves to take charge. While she does like to be in control, she's also very open and responsive to other people's opinion. She's very approachable and friendly, which makes it easy for her to talk to or to connect with almost anyone. This is especially beneficial in such an organization as SGA, because she can be a true voice and representation of the students. I think my ticket will do a great job if elected, and I'd like to hear what they say for themselves also. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Jim. I'm proud to stand in front of you and introduce the Building Bridges ticket. I must begin by saying that when choosing our ticket, I focused on students who understood student issues and were determined to improve this university. I knew we only had to agree on one thing, that we wanted to make St. Louis University a more loving campus. I did not want to surround myself with people who agreed with me on every issue. I did not want to pull from one section of campus. I did not only want past senators on this ticket. I wanted a diverse and flourishing representation of this university. I believe an executive board can only represent this entire campus if we each bring in different perspectives, beliefs, and approaches. When choosing our ticket, I focused on students who were engaged with the student body. The energy we have put into chartered student organizations, off-campus volunteer sites, residential advising, and other niches of this campus speak to how we will act next year. We are the students' students. We know the concerns, the doubts, and the worries. We value these concerns, and we want to aid students to turn that emotion into a positive outcome. We know that student government has not always been there for us. We find that simply unacceptable. We also know that student government can be and has been capable of positive change. One needs to look no further this year than the big accomplishments on the library renovation, or the critical improvement of security on this campus, or the smaller victory of angel-baked cookies introduced into dining areas. A member of Building Bridges was a critical piece in all of these projects. Although we have a vision for a more united and loving St. Louis University, we are not impractical. We know change takes hard work. It takes the ability to effectively communicate. It takes the courage to put the most important needs at the front and not to push one's own agenda. And it takes the hopeful vision of a better campus. We understand this, and if fortunate, we look forward to the challenge. I did not want to take this time to individually introduce the platforms of each candidate. I will be a president that puts faith in students, and that begins with putting faith in my executive board. In every area of our executive board, we are working to make SLU a more loving campus. Tyler Sondag, Jonathan Serpas, Patrick Grillo, Scott Hessel, Kripa Sripada, and Stephanie Song are here to work for you. They are your ticket. They are building bridges.
That concludes our presidential portion of the debate. Now we'll go into the vice presidential candidate portion of the debate. And we'll start with the VP for student organizations. So if you guys want to come up to the stage. Basically, the order that they'll be answering questions is Ignite will go first, then Building Bridges, then Evolve on the first question, and then on the second question we'll flip it around. So the last person to answer the first question will go first on the second question.
Welcome, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of the panel tonight. I've got a couple of questions. Just a note to start that you're going to have a minute and a half to respond to the first question, but you'll be limited to a minute on the second question. So here's the first question. What do you believe causes student apathy at SLU, and what would your strategy be for addressing it? The question is, what do you believe causes student apathy at SLU, which could be defined as lack of involvement or lack of engagement on issues?
Yes.
And what would be your strategy for addressing it?
I believe one of the biggest problems with that is communication. I really believe that communication between CSOs and the students is the best way to encourage them. I have a lot of ideas in my platform points to address that. One of them is to create a personal agenda so all the CSOs can really advertise their events. How that would work is an email sent out. You can make a check by a box, and then you can receive either text messages or email updates to actually get more information about these events and the CSOs. Another thing I would like to do is introduce a blog. This will also help in communication. Along with that, a big problem is marketing. I really believe that if you market to the students well, it's very effective. One of those ways is really making the wiki pages a lot better, more creative, very colorful, things like that. So again, I think the happiness of communication through the CSOs and SGA and all the members and students is the best way. Thank you.
Well, let me go. So I think the biggest reason that we have a lack of interest in SLU as students is a general disinterest in school spirit. As an overall statement, people just really aren't excited to support SLU. They aren't really excited to go to basketball games or go to meetings. We do have an incredible amount of students who are involved with student organizations. But if you look at the population, the total student population, and the total amount of people, students who are involved with the student organizations, I think it'd be quite a difference. I don't know the facts, of course. But I think the way that we go about that is targeting spirit and actually trying to get people to want to do things. You always hear a lot of people coming to SLU and wondering why we don't, why more people don't go out and do things, and why you see the same people doing the same things all the time in the same activities. So we need to go at it with a personal approach, and just being real with students to students. So from senators and in my position, just being real and approaching the student as a student.
I believe there's a lack of student involvement on this campus because there's a lack of communications between students. I hope to help this issue by more online resources. I want to update the Wiki website, and I also want to create a Facebook because many of us college students are always on Facebook. I believe that a Facebook page will allow us to get in contact with all CSOs immediately. I also believe that more involvement at the activities fair in the fall and the spring will enhance this. I hope to create more fairs with all CSOs that wish to attend, so they can meet with all students. That's all. Thank you.
Are we back? All right, good, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, just a reminder that we're going to go in reverse order. Okay, so we started, okay. Remember that you have a minute this time for the response. So here's my second question. Many student organizations face difficulty in transitioning their leadership from year to year. So as the Vice President for Student Organizations, what can you do to help ensure that those transitions in leadership happen more effectively?
To ensure that transitions between e-boards happen more efficiently, I want to mandate to hold elections for the e-board before annual funding, because I feel like this is where it all occurs, right around annual funding. People aren't sure who's going to step up next year. So I want to hold the elections earlier, and I also want to continue what Paul Pietà is doing right now and talking to ITS with getting an email address for all student groups that is their group name at SLU.edu. because I feel that that's where the miscommunication happens, is when we don't have an email address to find out who's running. Thank you.
I think plain and simple, the biggest issue with transition is education and awareness. A lot of times people fail to transition effectively and efficiently because they don't know how to transition, or they don't know when to transition. I'm sure you've all been a part of some kind of transition or seen some transition. And a lot of times all it takes is one little thing to completely sour. And that sets you back months, weeks, a significant amount of time that you could be using to get ahead and plan effectively. And a big portion of this is programs that we already have, such as Leaders of the Pack, and creating that education and that knowledge so that student leaders can go back to their organizations and lead them well as best as they can. Thank you.
All right, and also to help out with the change, as I agree with earlier elections and updating the contact list, as well as Leaders of the Pack, which have already been mentioned. But one of the things that I implemented in my platform is a blog. I think it is extremely valuable. The knowledge that you gain from a CSO is irreplaceable. I believe that allowing the past presidents, current presidents, presidents from different CSOs across the board, they really can help each other. So during this transaction, they can just smoothly roll into the new year, gathering new ideas from other CSOs, past CSO presidents, and their new members. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have our financial VP candidates come up next, and the order they'll be answering questions in is Evolve, then Ignite, then Building Bridges for the first one, and then the reverse for the second one. And all VP candidates will need to 1.5 minutes on the first and 1 minute on the second.
Again, thank you for being here and for allowing me this opportunity to ask a couple of questions. First question is, SLU has an ever-expanding number of student organizations, but it has a student activity fee that hasn't been increased for a number of years, so you could consider it kind of a fixed fee. So with a limited amount of resources and a growing number of student organizations, what can you do to ensure that all of the resource needs of those organizations are met?
I think the best way to make sure that all the resource needs are met is to have different groups collaborate with one another, and that goes along with one of the platform points that I have, which would be to bring the Great Issues Committee, GIC, back under the student government umbrella and make it somewhat of a student bureau. This way, I know that speakers are a very big thing for CSOs. Those take up a lot of their funding. So this way it would allow a lot more student groups to bring in speakers, and it wouldn't take as much of their funding away because the funding would come from Great Issues Committee, which would have a large portion of the budget. So I think that would be a great way to cut down on the cost that CSOs would incur, and it would still allow us to have a lot of CSOs on campus, while the student activities fee budget wouldn't change very much. Thank you.
Yes, we do face the issue of a growing number of student organizations, yet the same amount of funding. I believe that an effective way to ensure that our money is being allocated properly from the student activity fee of these organizations is to promote ideology amongst the Finance Committee and Senate of objectivity in monetary allocations based on the funding guidelines. I also believe that greater financial transparency is an issue that we should press for. I would like to increase the transparency with regard to the student activity fee, student wellness fee, BSC fee, and ITS fee, so the reports are given back to SGA so that as students we know how our money is being allocated, as SGA only controls the student activity fee currently. I'm open to dialogue with groups as if I'm to be elected financial vice president in exactly. I'm open to the dialogue with those groups in the annual funding process to ensure that they're given their objective allocations so that we can meet their needs most effectively. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, the question is, SLU has an ever-expanding number of student organizations, but it has a student activity fee that hasn't been increased for some time, so you could consider it fixed.
All right. So I think that's a great question. I think the expanding amount of communication, organizations on SLU just really shows how very diverse and how many people want to come together and promote the ideas and ideology that they have. And one of the biggest things with the activity student fee is I really think that communication plays an essential part in this process. And one of the biggest things is that I mentioned in my platform is Leaders of the Pack. And Leaders of the Pack, I really want to strive to emphasize the importance of how objective the Finance Committee is when it comes to the Finance Committee with the objective, with the guidelines and everything like that. And also the collaboration of other groups. For example, this semester we had ISG and BSA come together to host, a speaker, and I think that just shows a lot of collaboration right there. And I just think communication is an essential part to promote and just tell groups that the student activity fee is not changing, it's constant. But with work, if we work together, if we sit down and talk, I think that's an essential part of having, just explaining what the student activity fee is.
Okay, the second question is has to do with the spot funding process. So you're familiar with that process and understand that it's an important part of the resource distribution system in SGA. So when you think about the spot funding process and the guidelines for it, what are the most important things to preserve or highlight in that process? Or what is it that you might change or add or take away?
One of the biggest things that I've seen being in the Finance Committee is that there's really a lack of communication when it comes to student organizations. A lot of student organizations come up and, they're really scared of asking for, what they're really confused about what a guideline is, what counts as spot funding request. And I really think that what we can do to help is, promoting this topic of communication and this topic of openness, this clarity, this transparency that I really want to promote. And promoting this communication and promoting, how the guidelines work and promoting, how, we can work together, sit down. I think that's one of the key things, starting in the fall with Leaders of the Pack. And then one of my other ideas is coming up with this monthly daily check-in where the Finance Committee would email their respected constituents or organizations and just check in, make sure that the questions are being answered, making sure that if they have any concerns over their guidelines, if they have any questions over what counts as spot funding. I really believe that communication is what really needs to be addressed here when talking to communications organizations.
In regard to annual funding versus spot funding, annual funding requests, SGA has set a precedent last year of making them making those annual funding requests primarily what those groups will be allocated. Spot funding has to be deemed an unforeseeable expense by the Finance Committee in order to qualify, and even then their checks will go through a decision-making process and give a recommendation to Senate. I believe that the easiest way to clarify for student groups that their requests are to be made at the beginning of the year so as to preserve the amount of money and ensure the most effective allocations of the student activity fee is to communicate with those organizations and let them know about the policies during the annual funding process. I also believe that an effective transition of e-boards is necessary, and I would like to explore options and consider open dialogue with those student organizations, promote open dialogue with those student organizations to ensure an effective e-board process, e-board transition process.
To go off what both of them said, I think a big part of it has to do with communication, and it goes back to the annual funding process. One of my platform points is to make it mandatory that all CSOs have their elections take place before the annual funding process begins. This way, transitions would also hopefully take place before annual funding. And then their budget would be set by the new e-board. And that way there would be a lot less unforeseeable costs. So I think it would really cut down on spot funding. And also I think if we really just explain to them that spot funding is there for unforeseeable things and they really need to plan their budget well for the upcoming year, we would be able to cut down on it without having to change any of the rules that are currently in place.
Thank you. Now the academic vice presidential candidates will come up, and they will be answering the questions in the following order: Ignite first, then Building Bridges, and then Evolve.
Hello, I'm Leanna Fenneberg, Assistant Vice President of Student Development. I have 2 questions, same process, 1.5 minutes for the first question and 1 minute for the second. SGA concerns in 2006 about academic advising on campus prompted a thorough review and restructuring to what is now the integrated advising and mentoring system on campus. What do you see as the benefits of this system to students, and what do you see as opportunities to improve services and experiences for students in this model?
Let's see. Myself, speaking from experience, I do have an honors advisor, a finance mentor, a political science mentor, and an advisor in the business school as well. And so I have been very well on track, and my advisors have always been extremely helpful in making sure that I graduate on time with everything that I need. However, a lot of people are not as specialized in those, especially in the College of Arts and Sciences. And I've talked to a lot of people on this campus so far. There's just a lack of speciality, I would say, with the advisors, especially in the College of Arts and Sciences, because there are so many majors. That people are being put in pre-med biology when they're a communications major, and that's just not necessary. So I think a strength of the new setup is that you do have these mentors in your own programs. However, I think your primary advisor needs to be made more aware, maybe a little bit more specialized on those different fields.
I agree that the current model that was implemented 4 years ago does have its strengths and its weaknesses. And I applaud the advising leadership team for putting out a survey that's going to be going out this spring to reassess the survey. And really, the only way we can understand how students are experiencing the advising model is by asking them, and that's what's being done. So I would work with the administration on analyzing the results of those surveys and implementing the next steps that we feel are necessary. From my own personal experience, as well as meeting with the directors and assistant deans of all the advising units on campus, it seems that the biggest problem is communicating to students what the role of the academic advisor, the faculty mentor, and the student are in the process. Students think that they go to their faculty member for advice about what classes to take subjects of their advisor, when in fact their advisor is the person who's advising them on core curriculum, and their mentor is there for major classes and internship opportunities. I think the second point that needs to be brought up with that is also getting the faculty to buy into the system more than they have, and there are steps being taken to inform the faculty on how to better advise. But I think that also goes along with integrating faculty mentoring into the evaluation of faculty so that we can value excellent mentoring on the same level that we do superb instruction in the classroom. Thank you.
Talking to many students, as my opponents have mentioned, advising is a weakness of the academic system. There's a lot of strain, I know, on advisors because there are a lot of needs, there's a lot of students, and as it's costly to hire more advisors, we implemented the integrated program to help relieve that stress. As an accounting scholar, I have a faculty mentor set in place just from freshman year, and I know I went to his first meeting, he gave me my graduation plan, that I'm going to graduate next year with a master's in 4 years. So I strongly believe in the system, except the cost is that we need to have the lack of knowledge. We have the specialized department heads, but at the same time, they don't know each other's roles. I'm in 3 different programs that I have to meet with advisors, and each advisor will tell me a different set of curriculum. And so I think that is the fundamental cause and weakness of this system. We need to have a better education from the advisor's perspective, as well as from the students. The education all across the board needs to be increased. And I think if we cross-train, say, a business advisor in the honors as well, will help alleviate the stress and help push us forward in the advising.
Thank you. Now you'll go in reverse order and you'll have 1 minute for this question. The Student Success Center was established in the VSC in summer 2008 and on the Medical Center campus summer 2009 as a one-stop shop to aid in student academic and career success. How do you feel the Student Success Center and other support services on campus can continue to best meet the needs of students in their academic and career success?
I love and I fully support student-wide resource tools like this, but the fact of the matter is sometimes students don't want to utilize them out of pride or other various reasons, lack of knowledge, and so I would like to bring them more to a specialized and specific focus throughout each college. I know in the business school they have various mentoring programs. I myself am an accounting tutor, and so I would like to see more initiatives specialized and specific to that cause put in place, as well as one of my platform points in the renovation of the new library is to make designated study rooms for each respective college in the library. And I think that a common area like that, people can go and hang out, build camaraderie amongst their class, as well as study, develop study habits, as well as help each other and tutor will be a great source for that aspect as well.
I think the Student Success Center is an excellent institution at this university. As with any office on this campus and anywhere in general, there are always improvements to be made. We can and should do more to service students to the best of their, to meet them where they are. I think the services that they offer are being utilized by students, such as the career services. Personally, I've met multiple times with the career counselor, the internship counselor advising on what I'm going to be doing the next summer about internships. I think the career services that are offered in there as well, such as preparing for interviews and having them evaluate your resume, are important aspects that need to be used by students so that they can get a job after they graduate. There are two aspects of the university experience. I feel that there's the in-classroom instruction, and then there's the out-of-class instruction that prepares you for the real-world life after your classes. I think the Student Success Center focuses on the in-class, but also the other aspect as well.
I would agree with Patrick a little bit in terms of that two sides to the Student Success Center. I mean, you have your in-college experience, which I have found to be very helpful, very beneficial to myself, as well as a lot of other students. The tutoring services are phenomenal. They're really great. They can be there, within an hour of when you need them. However, at the same time, there's the after-college experience, which I do find lacking. Maybe you have used SLU's Career Link, which is the online resume source for a lot of jobs. It is not user-friendly. It takes a lot of time to change. All of your changes to your resumes need to be approved. And when there are deadlines coming up for different internships and jobs that you need to be completed, those aren't being utilized in our best interest. Also, something that I've found that a lot of other top universities have is an alumni database that's made available to their students. And I feel like this is an easy way to connect our students to alumni around the country and really ignite the value of your degree. We do pay a lot of money to go to this university, but if they are not preparing us, for a career in an extremely advanced, intertwined economy, then they're lacking in that, and we need to address those issues through that center.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next candidates want to come up to the stage. We'll have the Vice President for Internal Affairs, and they will be speaking in the order of Building Bridges, Evolve, and then Ignite.
Good evening. My name is Scott Smith. I also serve in student development, and also as the advisor in student development as the advisor to student government. I do have two questions, and similar to previous questions, you'll have a minute and a half for the first and a minute for the second, and the order is Building Bridges, Evolve, and Ignite. So the first question, what do you see as the most important role as the Internal Affairs Vice President, and how will you go about fulfilling this responsibility?
Thank you. Earlier we asked the question, does SLU love you? If elected next year, I would like to ask every student, does SGA love you? I think that the primary role for the Vice President for Internal Affairs has to be to reach out to the students. When I was trying to decide if I wanted to actually do this, I went around and I talked to students around campus about what they think SGA does. And the most common responses that most students said is they don't even know what SGA stands for, or that they wouldn't even ever consider going to SGA to actually do something. So I think that this is absolutely unacceptable. I want to come in, and I don't want to continue with SGA business as usual. I want to come in, I think that I'm the strongest position because I have the freshest perspective. To be able to do this, I think that it absolutely is the responsibility of the senators. The senators have to take a proactive approach to reach out to the students. This means that they don't just sit and wait for students to come to them at a cookout or at office hours. This means that they're reaching out to students, they're going to where their constituents are, they're hosting meetings, they're sending emails, they're sending polls, just to ascertain what the students are thinking. Also, they need to communicate better with what SGA is actually doing. Our e-board is thinking about implementing a video mailer instead of the weekly SGA mailer. But if that is the only interaction that students are having with SGA, that is a failure on SGA's part. Students need to know who their senators are. Senators need to be very active on campus.
I think there are some great points raised here. As Presidential Candidate Miner said, my sort of 3 platforms revolve around 3 things: accountability, transparency, and presence. All 3 interrelated. So how do those tie into what the role of VP of Internal Affairs and what the Senate should do? First and foremost, we are accountable to our constituents. We're going to be present to our constituents and be transparent to our constituents, followed by being all 3 of those with each other, and finally with self. There are many great ideas that I have for this that you can see on my platform, including the biggest one is getting our senators out in the field, attending the CSO events, so when spot funding and regular funding comes up, they know where their money's going to. They know what the mission of the CSO is, and they're not voting strictly on financial reasons. They can see the community that's being built and that's being evolved as they work together. Another big thing is having my senators having office hours where the constituents are. And on top of that, working with Housing and Res Life to get our senators to move in early, so they're there at Welcome Week. They're there helping students move in, getting to know people, being in the residence halls. Basically, you have the face name recognition going on. The last big thing that I would say, in order to have that presence, we have to meet them where they're at. I've talked with Jonathan Ernst, the editor-in-chief of the U-News, and we're looking at putting out a dual publication with the U-News and with SGA called Welcome Home in the fall and Welcome Back in the spring. Listing your senators with their faces, their names, what they're looking to strive for, as well as giving a map of campus, and finally also connecting them with the CSO leaders.
I think it's easy as a prospective Vice President for Internal Affairs to come up here and say, I'm going to require senators to do this, I'm going to require senators to do that. But I don't think that's enough. My platform speaks for itself in that respect, and that will definitely be addressed as far as accountability goes. But what really, Internal Affairs Vice President should empower students through the senators. Because until people are excited about SGA, until people are excited about joining SGA, accountability won't go anywhere until people are aware of what's going on. And this really starts from the first year experience. One of my main platform points is to allow freshmen to run as senators instead of being appointed by the Committee of Internal Affairs. I think freshmen are eager and ready to start to join SGA, and by getting people excited throughout 4 years of freshman senator elections, it'll really change the momentum of SGA and significantly. And also through synthesizing SGA records internally, we can further empower students by allowing people to access past and present SGA records, so that it's not just, I think we kind of forget that Senate is a student body. It is made up of students, senators are students too. And so and so are constituents. So having this cohesion between senators and students is the most important thing.
All right, thank you. My second question, and again we'll go in reverse order, I think you have a minute. But the second question is, there are a lot of administrative tasks associated with the internal affairs position: record keeping, tracking, planning, communication, attendance. How will you best manage all of these responsibilities while being a successful student?
I definitely agree. There are a lot of administrative duties. I think personally, I have a lot of experience with this, serving as Chief Information Officer last year. I was able to manage a lot of different records, whether it be the mailer or the minutes. And I think this is really important for the Vice President of Internal Affairs. And there really has to be a good amount of relationship between the VP of Internal Affairs and their committee. And I will strive to do this and relate any problems I have to Senate so that we can work together.
I think that raises a good point. I'm going to kind of piggyback a little bit off that. The internal committee is an extremely important part of the SGA body. And if we're going to be servant leaders to serve each other and to serve our community, there has to be an area of delegation. So not only will I work on tasks and create initiatives, but I want to be able to get my senators and my internal committee excited about that and delegate the work so they have the opportunity to be leaders. While I may not have the direct relationship with being on the internal committee or doing things like that, I've worked with large bodies, including the Diocese of Belleville Advisory Board, having to manage various committees, manage students, manage youth. That's basically a 15-hour plus a week endeavor that I've taken on. And from that, it has to be a delegation again. You plant the seed of what you want and what you hope to see, and let them run with it and let them manage it. So utilizing our senators to get them more involved eternally has to be there.
I think the answer to this question is very simple. It has to be organization, organization, organization. I feel like my past experiences, leadership experiences, have helped me to develop the organizational skills and the leadership skills to accomplish these tasks. At the same time, I'm humble enough to say that I may not do everything right, or I may need help along the way. And with that, I would like to give more senators opportunities to help with a lot of these things. I would like to give them to a lot of the specialized members of the Senate, like the Chief Information Officer, and let the people who want to help, especially in the Internal Relations Committee, help with those sort of things.
All right, thank you. Now we'll have a Vice President for Social Justice and Diversity candidates come up, and they will be speaking in the following order. Building Bridges will go first, followed by Ignite, and then Evolve.
All right, for our first question, SGA has worked diligently in the past year in developing the Oath of Inclusion. From your perspective, what would the SLU community look like if it were truly inclusive? What is the role of SGA in providing leadership towards this vision?
Thank you for the question. I think that a big aspect of the Oath of Inclusion is what it is about, and that is inclusion. I think that when you look at diversity and you come to SLU, you start to think, oh, SLU has a lot of diversity. There's a lot of diverse groups here. There's HALO, there's ISG, there's BSA, and it can go on and on. But the true meaning of diversity isn't in place here. The true meaning of diversity is one of inclusion. And that means that you can look at someone who is different from you, you can see their difference, you can respect it, you can learn from it, and you can grow from it together as an inclusive body. And I think that the role of SGA in that is actually having the entire e-board that is running SGA start to host this type of inclusive environment. It's a top-down thing. If people start to see inclusion coming from their e-board, they'll start to mimic it and start to see an environment of inclusion at this university.
Okay, so I think that inclusion goes beyond tolerance, as she was saying, and it goes into acceptance. And I think that I think my favorite thing that Tim has said, during one of the interviews that we've had, he said that the most important thing to him is our commitment to diversity. And I think that our ticket has more than warmed my heart that this is something that's very important to them. And as Griffin said, it has to start at the top. But I feel like we can't do this, our SLU can't be inclusive if our students aren't. So as Tim was saying earlier, my biggest thing is I don't want us to worry about as many administration rules, as this is a student problem, and this is something that we have to be committed to, and we have to go out of our way. So it is my goal as an executive board that we will empower student groups to work together, and I feel like charter student organizations on this campus have a great deal of power along with SGA, and I feel like if we work together to create a unity sense within ourselves to get the groups to open up to each other and learn about each other's differences, then it will help the SLU community at large become more inclusive.
Hey, thank you. Can I have your question repeated, please?
SGA has worked diligently in the past year in developing the Oath of Inclusion. From your perspective, what would the SLU community look like if it were truly inclusive? And what is the role of SGA in providing leadership towards this vision?
Currently, the way that I see it is if SLU were to look like a truly inclusive place, all of this really wouldn't be necessary. And that's a very idealistic view. And to be realistic, the way diversity looks, it's not a set goal. It's a specific, it's not anything specific. In reality, diversity is a continuum of development that occurs within various social identities. For instance, class, sex, gender, sexual orientation, race. To be inclusive at SLU, that would take a large movement within the student population. Currently, like you've mentioned, the oath, that's a great administrative, top-down approach, but in order to really reach and make the effective change that the SLU definitely needs, is through education programs similar to the one that is currently being set up by myself and my co-facilitators, which that being the intergroup dialogue program. It's an experiential learning process that takes each participant through personalized experiences, again, being experiential, of how social identities personally affect us in regard to our understanding of self, as well as our understanding of being a part of a larger community. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second question is, what opportunities do you see for SLU to fully engage and support underrepresented students?
That's an interesting question. It depends on what perspective you look at it from. If you look at it from the SGA perspective, we'd like to, again, idealistically think that every student is supported as needed. However, when it boils down to it, there are definitely some CSOs who receive more funding than others, within good reason. But in order to provide the support necessary for all groups, again, it's an education program similar to the intergroup dialogue program, to further people's self-awareness, again, in regard to themselves and their community, to better understand what needs to be done. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
What opportunities do you see for SLU to fully engage and support underrepresented students?
Okay. One of my biggest things is trying to help educate the SLU community on what exactly diversity is. And I think that when we think of diversity, we think minority spotlight, and not the fact that it's a difference, period. So things like political affiliation, those are, that's a diverse topic. So I feel like we should definitely try to help people understand that there's more than just one way to look at diversity, and that once we understand what it is, I'm sorry, what's the last part of the question again?
How SLU can fully engage and support underrepresented students.
Okay, so once we understand what diversity is, I feel like only then can we actually start representing people who we've neglected to in the past. And I feel that once you move past the minority spotlight and understand that students fear to express their difference in opinions, difference in beliefs and things like that, only then can we move past that.
I'm so sorry, can you repeat it one more time?
What opportunities do you see for SLU to fully engage and support underrepresented students?
Again, this has been echoed earlier. This is an interesting question because it really does depend on how you look at it. I feel like some groups feel like they're more underrepresented than others. But I do think that it all starts with just how we treat one another, our attitude toward what the true definition of diversity is. And that does sound redundant, but I do think that that's where we start. There's various avenues you can go through to improve this on campus. But it does start with communication, talking to a group, seeing what is it that you really think are the diversity issues on this campus, and even tapping into things that are never really looked at. Looking at, for example, SLU-Fused, St. Louis University for Undergraduate Socioeconomic Diversity. That's another example of a type of diversity that goes unseen on this campus, like political affiliation. So we just need to respect everything as diverse and then start to work on it in that way.
Now we'll have the VP for International Affairs candidates come up, and they will be speaking in the following order: Ignite, Building Bridges, and then Evolve.
Are we all up there? The last two questions. What do you see as the most pressing issue or issues for international students and how we've addressed them in this position?
I go first. Okay. I believe one of the worst things that can happen to an international student is not knowing what the campus can offer him, or what the options for the CSOs that they are out there for them they are. So I believe one of my main roles as Vice President of International Affairs would be to get the word out, to let the students know that there are something called the International Affairs Committee that is there to help the international student associations, as I call them, to reach to them, and also not just through the CSOs, but also to reach through directly the International Affairs Committee. Because if you go to many international students, they will tell you, yeah, not just that they don't know what SGA is, but they don't even know about the committee or anything. So only the friends of people in the committee or the friends of people in SGA actually know anything about them. So one of those problems is definitely communication. And if I get to be the Vice President of International Affairs, I will do my best, all my best effort to get the word out, that there's people out there that can help them get through anything.
I think the most important issue for international students is lack of emotional support and motivation. Other international students choose to come here to experience new things and get involved, but unfortunately they are not able to, just because there's a lack of understanding between domestic students and international students. Other international students are afraid of getting out and reach out because they think they are not capable enough to express their feelings using the English language because English is not their mother tongue. So in my platform, the priority is to establish an international domestic connections club. My point is to give all the international students an emotional support and motivate them to study and reach out. I represent international students myself because I'm an international student. I can truly feel the time when they feel difficult and they feel homesick, they feel lonely, they feel there's nobody to have, and they don't even know where to go and play and enjoy themselves. So I want to change this situation for them.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. What do you see as the most pressing issue or issues for international students, and how will you address this in this position?
Well, I think that the main issue is that we do not only have a language barrier, but we also have a cultural barrier that has mainly the flow of international students, especially coming from Asia, has made kind of domestic students feel, and them getting in their own niche, and domestic students as well as international students not interested in communicating and in sharing culture. I think that to enhance diversity and in order to make SLU more of a home for both international students and domestic students, there is a need to have more communication. I want to push those barriers away through one of our main goals as a VP of International Affairs, which would be to create the program that I would like to call Billiken Buddies for International Students. And this program would encompass leaders, domestic students that will try to help out international students in every way possible, whether it is going to register for classes, getting books, any of those issues, and then allow them to share their culture as well as to help them in the same way.
Okay, thank you. Looking ahead, at the end of your term, what do you hope to have accomplished as the International Affairs Vice President?
What I would hope to accomplish is to make the SLU a more diverse campus. To go off with what they were saying, I think that diversity is a word that is kind of misused at SLU, because we do not have a diverse campus as we would like to have it. So I think that there are many things that could help improve diversity, and by the end of my term, I think that is what I want to do the most. Trying to enhance the admissions process of bringing more international students from different countries, as well as to, like I said, break off those barriers, whether it's the language one and the culture one. And I know it sounds a bit idealistic, but I think that the programs that can be found in my platform are really a good solution to these issues.
I have a dream. One day I wish SLU will become famous in terms of having international students and domestic students mingle around together. I hope there's one day all the domestic students can speak fluently more than 3 languages. And the other, people from other universities such as WSU will admire us and invite us. And I hope every international student feels SLU at home and do what they want and never feel lonely again.
Probably when at the end of my term, that will be when I graduate. When I look back, I would like to see an international affairs committee that is really strong, that really connects with the students and really get the words out, that really goes and shows the students when they get here in August or in January that they can be helped by people that is closely related with the administration. I would like to have a really strong host family program that we're developing right now, currently in the International Affairs Committee, where students could stay over the Thanksgiving break or the spring break with American families. And the third thing is that I really believe international students are strong people, are people that are living behind their home, their culture, even their language, they don't speak English, so they're coming here. And I don't think they are afraid of connecting with people, because even domestic students, Americans, they can be afraid of talking with people too. I believe it's just that it's easy if you're lazy, it's easy, sort of lazy, it's just easy to connect with Chinese people or with Spanish people, with Italian people, wherever you are from, that is connecting with strangers. But myself, when I got in the university, I would just talk to somebody in class, ask for homework, study for exams, and really, when I look back, the best accomplishment I can have made, especially in international affairs, is knowing that international students, when they come to a campus, they know that they are coming to a campus where they can just feel completely free to talk with Americans or whoever they want, and just the same way Americans feel completely free that they can talk with internationals. Thank you.
thank you. If we could just get one more round of applause for all the candidates and our